Hello, everyone. We are here today with legendary retired Lieutenant Colonel Riccardo Bosi, very well known in Poland. I shared some clips with you translated to Polish, which had hundreds of thousands of views. That's the first thing. Ricardo is the leader of Australia One party, but it's a party that is not registered in the current system. That's important. So you are waiting for the military takeover to join the political theater later on when the conditions are satisfactory, let's say. Uh, and second thing, retired. I don't like to say retired because to me, we have just started fighting a few years ago. We have just started fighting. So I would say now you are actually doing the work of soldiers, digital soldiers. So I don't like the word retired. Okay, so Ricardo, could you introduce yourself more broadly?
Sure, Thomas. Thank you so much. Witam patrioto z Australii. I hope I said that well.
I understood it. That's good.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Thomas, for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure and privilege to speak to you. For those that don't know me, I'll do a quick introduction. Um, my full name is Riccardo Umberto Guerrino Bosi, which is very Italian. That's because my parents came out to Australia after the Second War in 1951 as a couple of teenagers, and they met on board the ship. Very romantic story. But they landed in 51. My mother was 15, my father was 17, and between them they had very few words of English. Before the end of the decade was out, by 1959, they had married, they had their first child, and they produced the first non-English language radio program in Australia covering news, current affairs, and music. And it was in Italian and English, bilingual, to help the new Australians, as they were then called, all the migrants that were coming out to Australia after the war, to help them integrate into their new country. And the reason I tell that story is because as a child growing up with those two parents, I was imbued with the need to serve. We need to serve the people in whatever capacity we can. That is paramount. And they served Australia, their new country, and they raised us not as Italians, but as they knew that we would be Australians with an Italian background. And it's very different. And so they understood that what moved their soul would not move ours, for example. My father loved the smell of roasted chestnuts in winter because it conjured up wonderful memories of his childhood in Italy. But we don't eat chestnuts in Australia, so it meant nothing to us. So they understood that they had to raise Australians and be loyal and serve this country. And so I did. On leaving school, I joined the army. I served 24 and a half years in the Australian Army, mostly in special operations, but also in mechanized infantry and light infantry and other areas, training institutions and staff work like most Army officers do. So I retired after 24 and a half years and established my first business venture, which was as a consultant, and I consulted on leadership, strategy, and innovation. And that was called Lionheart Australasia. And then a few years down the track, I received a phone call from a friend of mine, ex-Special Forces, Australian Special Forces, who was in the United Arab Emirates. And he said, "Would you like a job?" And I said, "Yes, what's the job?" Because as you might have heard, the Emirates are paved with gold. The roads are paved with gold. And so I was in the Middle East for 5 years in the United Arab Emirates, consulting to their Special Operations Command. And we had my wife was there with me. We had two daughters. We lived in Abu Dhabi, we lived in Dubai, and we lived in Al Daid. So we moved around a bit. Magnificent country, the best of all people. We had a great time there. So 5 years in the Middle East, and the work I did there was high-level strategy development, capability development programs, as well as training the soldiers to elevate their standards. And we trained with their special operations and deployed with them to Afghanistan. and we got them doing things they had never done before. So it was a tremendously exciting period. After 5 years, we returned to Australia, and we were shocked what we saw when we returned because the country had degraded terribly. There's nothing like leaving home and then coming back and finding it in a worse state. And so we decided that we had to do something about it. I joined a political party, the Australian Conservatives, contested an election for the Australian Senate. We didn't win any seats, and the leader of that party disbanded it. And a few of us decided there was still a fight to be had. We still wanted to save our country. And so we formed this group. There's five of us in a kitchen. There was myself, my wife, an IT guy, a public relations woman, and a graphic designer. So we said, hey, we've got everything we need. Let's start a party. Let's do something and see how it works. And we did. And that was many, many years ago now. And we've traveled the country. We've contested six elections at the federal, state, and local level. We've trained up countless candidates, so they know what it's like to be a candidate. We've trained up countless campaign managers, volunteers, booth captains, and in the process of contesting all these elections, we knew that the system was rigged. It was so badly rigged in one election. Apparently, I didn't even vote for myself. We looked at the results, and there were zero votes for Bosi, zero. And despite the fact, at this one particular booth, despite the fact I voted for myself, my wife voted for me, my son voted for me, another candidate voted for me. That was just crazy. But we used that opportunity as to contesting those elections to find prima facie evidence of corruption in the electoral system. And so it's all paid off beautifully. And this we've been working for many, many years now. We have hundreds of thousands that support us, or sorry, tens of thousands that support us, hundreds of thousands that follow us. And as you quite rightly said, we're not registered in this fake corporation government that we have in Australia. We're waiting for the real thing to turn up. But it doesn't matter because we're creating this movement. And the beauty of this movement, it is unlike any other political movement ever. And I'll explain why right now. When we kicked off, Australia One, we wrote down our intention. Now, being an officer, Lieutenant Colonel, whenever you start a military operation or a large complex operation, you set your intention. And your intention comprises three parts: purpose, method, end state. So purpose, what you're going to do; method, how you're going to do it; end state, what the world would look like when you're finished. It's a to-do list. You've got to achieve all these elements of the end state. And so for Australia One, our purpose is to save Australia. That's it. Short, sharp, we must save Australia. Now let's give the method, to bypass that for a minute, let's go to the end state because the method reveals itself once you've looked at the situation. Here's what we're aiming for within Australia. We want Australia to be a moral, sovereign, self-reliant, Christian Western constitutional republic, which is economically powerful, militarily intimidating, politically free, culturally vibrant, and socially cohesive. Now that's a pretty good picture of what we want this country to be. And that assists us in deciding what we stand for and how we're going to do it. Because if what we do deviates in the least degree away from that end state, we don't do it. And so it's not a marketing statement, it's not a vision statement for the corporate office. This is a to-do list. And the first one you'll notice was moral. We have to be a moral people. Because without the morality, nothing else matters, as we are discovering around the planet. People have great GDP, people have great jobs, they're making tons of money, whatever. But the morality of the planet, the morality of each country has been progressively degraded quite intentionally. And so the first thing is we have to be a moral people. And let me just throw in quickly what we mean by a moral people. A moral people are a group of people, and it can be a family, it can be a nation, who agree the difference between right and wrong, and who will then think, speak, and act to advance the right and eradicate the wrong. And that's our definition of a moral people. And once again, as the definition is good, what it starts to do very quickly, you see with great clarity what must be excluded from your policy statement, what must be included in your policy statements, the direction you must go, and with whom you will now deal. Because we deal with very few people because they can't tell us what they actually want to do. So they've got the purpose is to save Australia. You've just heard the end state. And then the method. Now, here's where we differ from every other political organisation that has ever existed. except maybe one, Christianity. It wasn't a political movement. How we're going to achieve this is the most difficult, but it's the only way we can guarantee that this awful mess that we, Australia, are in and the world is in will never happen again. The method of achieving this is we will create a moral, and there's that word again, a moral political movement that will raise every Australian to their highest individual potential so collectively all may participate in the reformation of Australia. And so we are going to bring everybody with us. That's how we do it. See, most political parties, as you know, will say, give me your money, I'll do the right thing by you, and I'll see you in 3 years. They never do anything, right? But this way, the individual people are now stepping up and we push as much political power as low as possible to the counties, for example. So the counties will have maximum democracy, then the states, then the federal government only deals with the highest level federal issues, but it doesn't sit on its throne and dictate to the people how they should live their lives. Now, this requires a moral people, it requires a very intelligent and educated people. As the Americans say, it's a great constitution if you can keep it, the great republic if you can keep it. It's the same here. Now, we know this will take time. The educative process is key, but we're pretty happy. And the beauty of it is that people are drawn to us by that idea that we are creating an organization that is giving power back to the people in every possible way, including their ability to fire, to sack, to get rid of their politicians with recall elections if they fail to stand up to their promises. And the beauty of that is the politicians are now responsive to the people, not to the party, which is fantastic. So there you go. A couple of young kids came out from Italy in 1951, and a few years later, one of their children is now deciding we're going to take over the country and make it better than it ever was.
Great. Unfortunately, we don't have an equivalent for you in Poland. There are no retired military lieutenants who speak so boldly about these topics. One thing I wanted to refer to was voter fraud. So you mentioned that you got zero votes, although you yourself voted for yourself. But anyway, in Poland, we have this uh, narrative as well. So when the current coalition won the election, there were buses of mainly young people, in the middle of the night, at the end of the voting, uh, waiting in lines to vote at 2 a.m., for example. That was one part of this show to show people that our elections are fraudulent. Another
Mm,
example in Poland was empty boxes with signatures. In Poland, you have to get 100,000 signatures if you want to be a presidential candidate.
yep.
And this psychological operation in Poland was that the one of one started Trzaskowski, the globalist candidate. He held a box, apparent box with apparent signatures like that, and oh, we have 1 million signatures in these boxes, and people associated with him, they held these boxes, like five of them, it would be like 20 kilos, and they just, oh yeah, we have million signatures. And then other candidates did exactly the same thing. The Nawrocki, the current president, he showed himself with a wall of boxes, and he said, "Oh, I have 1 million signatures." And there was one journalist who took part as a joke. Basically, he took part in the election as a joke, and he said, "Oh, I have 4 million. I have 4 million signatures." In Poland, where we have nearly 40 million inhabitants. But anyway, that was definitely psychological operations, and they cooperate. They cooperate because they make it so obvious that it cannot be just an accident, like a mistake by them. Another thing, Mr. Donald Tusk, he cooperates as well. And I will go back to what you said. A knock on the door, and they are being shown files. You are guilty. You cooperate, or we take you to the tribunal. Yeah, that's one of your very famous clips. And Tusk definitely, the prime minister, he cooperates. So another example of psychological operations in Poland. Tusk, during the presidential campaign, he literally said, being the prime minister, he said, "We are being ruled by political gangsters." Can you imagine this? How ridiculous it is. The prime minister says we are being ruled by political gangsters. And he says now
Yep.
the real gangsters, Nawrocki, can win. That's what he said. That's what he actually said. So he basically confirmed that his political, sphere is political gangsters. That's he literally said it. So that must have been a very bold psychological operations. There are more, like the drone strike. Recently, a few weeks ago, we had that Russia sent drones to Poland, and one of these drones, I mean, two of them, at least two of them, were made of styrofoam. Styrofoam. So it's like a complete joke. One of them landed on a cage for rabbits. For rabbits. I don't know if it's a rabbit hole. Maybe it is. Another one was on a field, and the main sewage media, we call it main sewage media in Poland. They obviously and I call journalists, I call them journeytudes, like journalist prostitute.
Yeah,
But anyway,
that's
so
exactly
I
right.
think I think that with these styrofoam drones attacking, cages with rabbits, uh, it was a double false flag. I think it was a double false flag. So I think the white hats must have framed Polish government and Ukraine to blame Russia ridiculously blame Russia for these styrofoam drones. There are other examples, but of psychological operations. Uh, for example, our head chair of constitutional tribunal, he accused the current government, Donald Tusk, of coup d'état. Coup d'état. And before that, Donald Tusk, he gave all the reasons to be accused of coup d'état. He took over the Attorney General's office by force. He took the national television by force. So it was a situation in the media where there are two attorney generals in the office, in the building, and he says, "I'm the legal one. I'm the legal one." The other says, "I'm the legal one. The legal one." So Tusk took over general prosecution or attorney general office by force. He took TVP, so Polish television, national television, by force. It was exactly the same situation. There were two directors. One says, "I'm the legal one." The other says, "I'm the legal one." Another example, Donald Tusk, he on Twitter, he withdrawn a signature, his signature. So he basically tweeted, I simplify it, but he tweeted, "I withdraw my signature under something," and there was it's like he gives all the reasons to to be accused of being a dictator, basically. So
Yeah.
some most people, they get angry, even awakened ones, they get angry, but I explain them he is cooperating. He's compromising his own party and the whole coalition, and he is working in a sting operation. So basically, he's setting up his minions, to commit crimes, basically, and to compromise themselves. And I talked to one citizen journalist about it. I made interviews and explained it, and he said, "Oh, now when I understand what he is doing, I don't feel hatred for him." That's what he said. That's what this citizen journalist said, and it helps. That brings me to the sixth generation warfare, which you indirectly mentioned. So fighting for the morality of people, but not just morality, but the vibrational state, to understand things as positively as possible, to look at the bad things, that they have the positive side to them. Okay, I think could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. Let's first up, you said that you don't have an equivalent retired lieutenant colonel. Poland's got what, I think about 38 million people in your country. I know for certain that there are countless Poles ready to go. I mean, your country, if any country, has been bred for this moment because you have fought and defended yourself for 1,000 years. You disappeared off the map when Austria and Prussia and Russia decided to carve you up for themselves. You disappeared for 123 years, I think. If there's any nation on the planet ready for this fight, it's the Poles because you have been invaded, you have been destroyed and reborn countless times over and over again over the last 1,000 years of your history. So I'm sure that there are many, many out there. Now, let me just read you a quote because this is very important. This is a quote from a gentleman called W.H. Murray, who participated in the Scottish, he's a Scottish gentleman, Scottish, and he participated in an Himalayan expedition in 1951. And he sat around with his friends and said, "Well, how do we do an expedition to Mount Everest? I mean, we don't know how to do this." And the trick was just begin. And I'll read you the quote in full. Now, this quote is erroneously attributed to Wolfgang Goethe. And it's not Goethe's quote at all. It's actually W.H. Murray, but I'll read it to you. And I hope every Pole, and in fact, everybody listening to this hears these words because they are so profound and so true. And I know that because we lived it. My wife and I and our three friends who started Australia One in a kitchen. That was it, and a good idea. And here we are now. We're an internationally recognized force for good in this war for the world. But let me read the quote to you because it's very important. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative or creation, there is one elementary truth that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would otherwise never have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man would have believed would have come his way. Whatever, and this is the final line, and listen carefully, whatever you think you can do or believe you can do, begin it. Action has magic, grace, and power in it. And that's from W.H. Murray. So, to anybody listening that wants to get involved in this, to save their country, to save their family, just start. Just start. And all of a sudden, people turn up, assistants turn up, volunteers turn up, people willing to give of themselves. All they need is the leadership to do it. So please, that's point number one. And I am certain of all the countries on the planet, Poland's in great shape, ready to go, not despite all the nonsense. Now, talking about the psyops and all the false flags, you're exactly on the money, Tomas. That's exactly what they've been doing. What the people have to realize is that you've got the white hats who are running this war, and they are operating at many levels. At the basic kinetic level, where you shoot at things, that's happening. It's happening underground in the subterranean tunnels, and that's a whole story on its own. So that sort of kinetic warfare is still going on. And I got to remind everybody that there is a global military alliance led by the Americans involving over 100 countries, and they are fighting this real war, and they have for some time. And this is a shooting war. Now, what they're shooting at, that's another story, because you may or may not know this, but the Black Hats have been creating chimeras, these half human, half animal creatures, and that's what some of this battle is about. These horrific mutants that the Black Hats have created, as well as just just soldiers generally. So there's a kinetic aspect to the war. Then there's a psychological aspect of the war, and it's not just um, demoralizing you or destroying your beliefs or undermining everything that is good, although that is part of it. But they're also getting into, and this is where you get into the fifth gen warfare, where they are determining how you think and why you think. You think that you're making your decisions based on a sound analysis or rational examination of the issues. And the reality is, all of us, me included, we're informed every day by this bombardment of advertisements, of fake news, of fake politicians, of fake judges, and we just believe that this world that they are giving us is true, and it's not. It's just not true. And so they get into our heads and they force us, they shape us, they manipulate us into thinking a certain way, making certain decisions, believing that there are only two parties, believing there's only two ways to do it, this way or that way. Well, there's always a third way. And it's up to us to find that third way because they're not going to tell us. And so the false flags you're seeing are there to confuse us, to block, to obfuscate, to hide the reality, to make it hard for us to get through. And then they'll throw, rising prices so we don't even have time to think about that. We're too busy trying to buy groceries. And I've been there as well. I've been there where I had $20 in my wallet for a week's shopping, which normally costs 250. So, it's tough. And so it's hard to think of the big threats in the planet when you're trying to feed your children, like I was. There were days there where I didn't eat much at all. And they'd say, "Aren't you eating tonight, Dad?" And I said, "No, no, I ate earlier. Thanks. I'm okay." But you do what you've got to do. And you don't put the pressure on the children. You don't let them know that you're going through a tough time. We're out of that period now, which is great. But everyone's been through that. Then the last thing you were talking about was this deception where there is a show and people are behaving badly, let's say, and it's all designed to undermine themselves. They're under control. Because many of the politicians, particularly, and what people must realize is that very few politicians, no politicians in reality, have any power. They are just puppets put there. They are given their speaking notes and they read their speaking notes and they go away. They literally make no decisions, zero. They are all controlled. In fact, you don't get into parliament, you don't get into power unless you're blackmailable, and they have that blackmail, and you will do what you're told. So they don't send out a 6 by 8 inch glossy photograph of you doing nasty things to children. That's how it works. So honest people don't get in. So what happens now is you've got these blackmailed puppets doing what they're told to do, but now the white hats have got control. And what they're doing, they did the same thing. Knock on the door. Here's a picture. You're now going to do what we say, not what they say, because they're now in jail. Because another aspect that people aren't aware of, that many of these people have already been arrested. This has been going on for years. Many, many years. The arrests were made. They were charged, tried, found guilty, and executed. And many of the people you still see on your screen died years ago. But they're going to roll those movies out in slow time because the majority of the population could not handle the truth. It's like that line out of the movie. You can't handle the truth. And the reality is, a lot of people can't. So it would be in this war for the world, if they ripped off the bandage quickly and just got it out of the way, too many people would go into psychotic shock. They couldn't handle it. It would destabilize them too greatly. As a metaphor, for example, when the prisoners were released from the labor camps, the Nazi labor camps, for example, the gates were thrown open, the people were free to go, and they didn't move. They were waiting to be told what to do next. They literally just stood there. They were so demoralized. Now, it's not a bad metaphor for most of the people on the planet. They have no idea what to do. Second, second part of that analogy is you can only give them so much so quickly before they refuse to accept any more. And again, back to the labor camp, their food ration was so small and so low, their digestive systems had all but closed down. And so, if they fed them a huge three-course meal on the day that they were liberated, it would have killed them because their body couldn't handle it. So, they had to feed them gruel and thin soup to bring them back up to some level of strength where they could handle the truth. Now, psychologically, most of the planet is exactly there. You can't tell them that everything that they've believed for all their lives is a lie. And there are so many aspects to your life, your physical life, your emotional life, your mental life, your psychological life, your spiritual life, all these aspects. Most of what we've been told is a lie. Now, whenever I get to that, people start to worry, and I say one thing: Jesus Christ. Hang on to Jesus Christ, and you'll be okay. Okay, so pray to Jesus Christ, the man and the God he prayed to at Gethsemane, because everybody's going to need to hold on to something to remain stable through this very destabilizing process. So it's a good thing that Poland's a Christian country. You're in great shape. Just keep praying to Jesus, and you'll be okay. But be prepared for the truth as it comes out, because most of what we believed is in fact untrue. And there's so much to that one statement, we wouldn't have even time to unpack it. But people have to understand that that's what's going to happen. And so the slow process of revealing this to the people, revealing all these truths, people revealing themselves, politicians behaving like idiots, and you think, what is he thinking? He's being told to behave that way, so he's revealing himself to the people. And the last bit of that will be the media, the main sewerage media, as you call it. Um, the same people that have been lying to Poland for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, those same faces on the screen are the same ones that now must tell you a different story. Because who's going to listen to me? Who's going to listen to you? Nobody. Why? They don't know who we are. So why should they listen to us? So they're going to leave the mainstream media characters up there, and you'll have this person who's been telling you that black is white for the last 20 years, and all of a sudden they'll turn around and go, no, no, black is black and white is white, because they trust, and the people trust this individual, even though this individual has been lying. And so you won't see a lot of people disappear quickly. You'll see them progressively disappear. It'll be measured out slowly so that people can begin to understand, because the people they believe are liars, so they have to now tell the new truth. And then it'll be a case, I guess, of you can accept as much as you want to accept. They're not going to force anybody to believe anything, but the truth will be out there, and people can take it or leave it as they wish. There's an old gentleman that I know, and he's just short of 100 years old, and he's a lovely guy. He's lived a long, productive, good life, and he just doesn't want to know. And I can understand that. He's had his fight, he's done his work, and he's happy to leave, and he'll live his last days out believing what he wants to believe. And it's not my job to ruin his spirit. And so it's a case of people will take or leave what they want to, but they must understand that most of what they are seeing on TV, most of what they are seeing is fabricated. It's a lie. It's a show, as they've been keep saying, buy the popcorn, watch the show. It's an accurate analogy, but when you're genuinely in pain and you're genuinely being threatened with your life, it's hard to accept it as a show. But that's the nature of war. It's the brutal mathematics of war. People get hurt. The one thing to keep in mind is that thank God for the white hats, because instead of losing the numbers that we have lost, it was intended to be billions were to be killed. And thank God for Donald Trump and the white hats. They couldn't save everybody, but they have saved countless billions of people from death.
Great. One thing, there are a few things I wanted to refer. The show, one of my catchphrases that I use is show must go on. in English. So when I record my videos, I quite often start with "Show must go on," and part of it is almost like comedy. I mean, basically, when I record my videos with many of the things that are happening, I make comedy from it. So that brings me to another psychological operation. We have something called state tribunal. So, tribunal that would be used to accuse politicians, judges, and so on. And the head, the chair of the state tribunal, she's being accused of treason, I think, by the state tribunal. So, the chair in Poland.
Yeah.
And it's like comedy. And the next thing is that
Hang
uh,
on, before you go on, Tomas, we have exactly the same situation in Australia, where we have the National Anti-Corruption Commission, and the commissioner of the National Anti-Corruption Commission has recently been accused of corruption, of corruptly appointing corrupt lawyers to do paid work because they're his friends, not because. So same thing. But
yeah,
but people have to understand that's how the system works. You get the corrupt person to run the anti-corruption commission. You get the corrupt person to run the judiciary, the polity, the bureaucracy. That's how they keep control.
they use the same scripts in many other in countries around the world. The same script, like a movie, like a cheap movie, and but that's not the end. So judges from the state tribunal, they are excluded from judging because they are witnesses in the case. So what happens? She cannot be judged.
This is
Because
brilliant.
there
This
are
is,
not enough judges to judge them, to judge her.
yep, madness. It
It's
is
just
absolute
like
madness.
a cheap house of cards, basically. But anyway, I
Yep.
make comedy. Like some of my videos are pure comedy. I uh, I love British comedy. I watched loads of films from British comedy, and I have on the I have one account where I play a role of lefty crazy person. So a person, a wombless, womb like women's womb, wombless
Yep.
person who is non-binary and is fighting for abortion rights of wombless people. That's one of my
Yeah.
one of my activities. But anyway, one thing that you mentioned, historically, Poland was a very rebellious country. But now the awakening community is so disappointed with Polish population because we didn't have really during the pandemic or later we didn't have like serious protests, almost not
Mm.
almost no. And I know that in the Western Europe, Poland is seen as this calm country with not much crime, definitely no gun crime. That we have almost zero of that. So people are disappointed, and there is an expectation that we will tolerate, and then we will blow up, and there will be huge protests all over Poland. So there is this expectation to come back to the roots and behave like we used to during the Second World War, for example. Another
Yeah.
thing, they replace politicians. I'm 100% certain that Trzaskowski, the globalist presidential candidate, he was an actor. He was an actor. I could show you the photos of him 3 years ago and today, and he is an actor definitely, or a clone, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Another our Speaker of the House equivalent, Hołownia. He is an actor as well, and many of my viewers they see it. We also have celebrities. Also have celebrities who don't look like themselves. I don't know much about celebrities because I don't watch TV or these stupid magazines with celebrities. But anyway, my viewers they tell me, oh, she doesn't look like herself. This one doesn't look like herself. And there is this famous cook in Poland, Magda Gessler, and she looks definitely different. She disappeared for some time, and people are asking. Why would they replace Gessler? She's just a cook. And my explanation would be apparently elites like human flesh. So somebody needs to cook. That's just my conjecture. But anyway,
Yeah.
uh, what else? Another thing, accountability. Accountability. You mentioned accountability briefly, and that's another thing I would like to ask you. Like from my understanding, in Poland, it will be tens or hundreds of thousands of people that will need to be put in front of military tribunals. And that's what I see. Like we have 50,000 policemen who took bonus for the actions during the pandemic. 50,000 they accepted bonus. I call it a bribe for crimes against humanity. So we have
Yep.
thousands of judges, of prosecutors who don't do anything. And one of my activities is I send letters to prosecutors, and I say there are cases of crimes against humanity here, and here, and they don't do anything. Sometimes they send it to somebody else. So one regional prosecutor sends it to another regional, then to the local, then to the other one, and it's getting sent from one from another. Sometimes they refuse to take action, and then I inform the other one of that the one who refused is a henchman. It's a legal term in Poland, henchman. And so one of the one of my questions that is quite important for me. So accountability. It looks like to me these tribunals will be huge, absolutely huge. If it was done by normal processes, it would take 100 years, I think.
Yeah.
And so that's one of my question. If you can,
Sure. No, I'm happy to talk about that. No, and
okay.
you're exactly right because the crimes against the people are so depraved that they will be demanding retribution. They really will, and so they should, and they deserve to see it. This ridiculous process where a crime is committed and 10 years later, the court is finally assembled and the charge is heard. No, this is military tribunals. We're under martial law, and martial law is very different to civilian law. You marched in, you read the charge, the defense is presented, the the prosecution is presented, the judge makes a decision, and you're executed a day or two later. It's as quick as that. And this has been going on for years, and they have been recording these. They've been recording these on analog machines, not digital, so you can't change it. And it'll be revealed bit by bit by bit. Now, the accountability for those, that'll be done. It has been done, it's being done, and will continue to be done. People like Obama and Hillary, they're already dead. They went a long time ago. Biden dead long time ago. And so we've been watching this.
Trump posted that Biden was executed. So it's official.
Correct. Yep. And so it's the accountability is there, and everybody. I remember I was told you will be very satisfied, meaning me, because I was a little bit cranky and I wanted to see blood because I was sick to death of this complete nonsense. And they said you will be satisfied with what happens because the crimes they have committed are so grotesque that they will not survive, and nobody gets away this time. Everybody, even to the least degree, everyone will have to pay the price for what they have done. It'll take time to come out, but it will come out and people know it. And the second part of accountability is this. So that's for people who have done the wrong in the past. In the future, though, we have to make sure we establish a process by which anybody that is taking the people's coin, anybody that's being paid by the government to work, whether it's a president, prime minister, or whether it's a typist in the Department of Agriculture, if you are taking the people's money and you lie to the people, that is by definition treason. You may not lie to the people because the people are the source of law. And this comes back to our end state, a moral sovereign people. We must be a sovereign people, meaning we humans are the source of law, nothing else. Now, let me break it down for you how we do it in Australia. We say there are three sources of law. There is divine law. Now, God is the source of all law, I get it. But he's delegated responsibilities, let's say. So there's divine law. This is to do with life. And we don't muck around with God's law. That's God's realm. We leave it alone. And that's why we have policies, for example, where there will be no abortion. You don't mess with life. You don't, in vitro fertilization is another area where commercialization of life has taken place. Genetically manipulating the DNA and claiming that you are now the property of a corporation because the DNA has been manipulated. This is insane. No, life is God's realm. That's divine law. No commercialization of human life is authorized, so stop it. So that's the first part. Then you've got natural law. And what's natural? Well, we define it differently to others. This is the rules that runs the universe. Now, you can play in that area. We're talking about gravity. We're talking about the speed of light, things like that. And this is where we can explore and expand. But we don't change, 4 seasons into one long summer. No, 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 no. It doesn't work that way. The universe has its own rhythm. The universe has its own logic. Live within the natural laws. You can play and experiment, but you don't muck around there. That leaves the last one, which is human law. That's where we get to make our minds up. Now, we might get it right, we might get it wrong. And the analogy I use is it God's law that the speed limit in front of a school is 40 kilometers an hour? Or is it 50? Or is it, no, that's not, that's for us to make up, go play. Go make up your own human law and see how it works out. And if you make the speed limit in front of a school 120 kilometers an hour, you're going to have some unintended consequences. And so we learn by making those mistakes on a human level what the law is. But the human law, how we are governed, that's for us to decide. That is critically important. We believe that God has made us in his image, that we all have that divine spark. We are all equal in his eyes. That's our Christian perspective. And that we make laws according to the rules that he has given us. And so that human law is where we decide how we are to be governed. And that delegation of sovereignty to us is our authority to establish the rules for the governance of our country. And if anybody breaks it, once again, going back to the beginning, whether it's a president or prime minister, or whether it's a typist in the Department of Agriculture, no, no, no. If you are working for the people, you are loyal to the people, you must serve the people, and you may not lie to the people because that is treason. And if you're found guilty of treason, it should be the death penalty or life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. And so all of these issues, this accountability in the past and in the future, we have to think on this deeply and decide for ourselves how we choose to be governed. And in Australia, one, if I can go back to my end state, and this is part of our educative process, we're going to go through this 6-7 month process where we examine, this is the organization, what it means to be a moral people, what it means to be a sovereign, what it means to be self-reliant, what it means to be Christian, Western, constitutional republic, economically powerful, militarily intimidating, politically free, culturally vibrant, socially cohesive. So we understand the elements of the end state, and then we can begin to design a constitution which best delivers that end state to us. And this is critical, the accountability. Humans are the source of law, of human law, and anybody working on behalf of the people must be responsive to those people and do what they are required to do. And if they don't like it, they can always quit. But we are the source of law. We determine how we will be governed. Last point on this accountability. Everything I say makes sense, but then you'll say, well, what about Muslims? And I'll say, exactly. That's why we go back to morality is the first question. We must agree the difference between right and wrong. Now, Muslims think they are the chosen people. They think they are preferred by Allah and the rest of us are just filth. The Jews think that they are the chosen people. They are above us and we are just filth. The Hindus have it actually structurally built into their religion, where you've got the different levels. You've got the Brahmin on top and the untouchables down the bottom. And we say, well, we've got a problem here. See, if you want to come into our country, you can believe other things. You may bow your mind and your soul to whichever God you want. But your physical actions must be in accordance with Australian secular law, which is based on a Christian ethic. And so we're happy for people to come into this country. We are not happy for them to say, I have the right, as a Muslim would, to marry a girl at the age of 6 and then consummate that marriage at 9, because that's what Muhammad did. And Muhammad is the prophet and he lived the perfect life and I must copy him. And we say, good for you, get the hell out and do that somewhere else. That coherence is necessary for all of these national groups. Now, what the black hats, what the cabal has almost successfully done is degraded any sense of national identity by forced migration. And thankfully, Poland has been a champion in resisting that. But they've been trying to degrade any sense of national identity because it terrifies them. And what they are most frightened of is the Christian West, because every other religion, every other country can be bamboozled, can be lied to, can be deceived. But the Christian West is the last best hope for the planet because we are the only ones that believe we are all equal. We all are made in the image of God. We all have that divine spark. And as Christ said, whatever you do to these, the least of my brethren, you do unto me. We live that way. The Muslims don't. The Hindus don't. The Jews don't. The rest don't. We do. And so that's why it's incredibly important for the Christian Western nations to stand up for what we believe in and decide for ourselves how we will be governed and not accept dictates from whether it's from Brussels or anywhere else. As Donald Trump has said, he wants Australia to be for Australians. He wants Poland to be for the Poles. He wants England to be for the English. He wants France to be for the French. This is paramount. This nonsense of standing under the EU flag. When I visited Italy not long ago, um, and I saw the EU flag alongside the Italian flag, I found it repulsive, absolutely repulsive. Now, EU, are there benefits to the European Economic Community, which was the first stage of that transition, where let's talk about trade rules and reduce the barriers to increase trade and wealth all around. Nothing wrong with that. But then, of course, we know it transitioned to the EU, where you are now forced to comply to whatever Brussels says. Well, that's just bloody ridiculous. You also have NATO, where you have this independent military organization telling national governments how they are going to be fight and defend. No, this is complete nonsense. Brussels should be the servants of Europe. And the Europeans, if they don't like what Brussels is doing, they should sack them. There should be recall elections like we're going to have in Australia, like Australia, the United States already has recall elections. Switzerland has recall elections. And so Europe, at the moment that Brussels displeases them, and there's a majority of people in a country that say we're not going to do it, they should be free to say we're not going to do it. We will not comply. And the bureaucrats in Brussels must get on bended knee to the people of Europe, individually by country. And if the Poles don't want to do it, they don't have to do it. Nobody can make them do it. Now, that's an economic community that makes sense. The EU should be destroyed. every European nation must stand on its own 2 feet, and then as equals, as best as you can, you deal with each other and create rules that everybody's happy with. And if they're not happy, they should be free not to play. It's
Uh,
up to you. You've got to do it. It's the only way you'll survive.
exactly. One thing came to my mind. Polish Constitution. I'll read you Article 4 of Polish Constitution. Supreme power in the Republic of Poland should be vested in the nation. The nation should exercise such power through their representatives or directly. Directly. It says in the Polish constitution there are two options: representatives or directly. And another thing,
I love it.
Polish Supreme Court uh, on the 26th of April 2023, they ruled that critical mass of breaking individual rights has been exceeded. There is I don't translate it perfectly, but critical mass of violating
Yeah.
personal rights has been exceeded or something like that. So
Yeah, I follow.
basically
Yeah, I follow.
that leaves us the second option, only the second option, directly. So we have it from the
Thomas,
Supreme Court and Article 4 of our Constitution.
Thomas, it looks like you've got a job to do. Way you go. You must begin now.
I,
Start the
I'm
revolution.
trying, but nobody wants to take it seriously. That's the problem. That's the problem with judiciary. They and I realized it fairly recently, in recent years. They basically tell you you can stick your constitutional rights up your ass in Poland. It's something like that.
Yeah.
It's always been like that. They don't care about constitution at all, and it's the same with police.
No,
It's prosecutors, judges. They whatever you do in front of the court, in front of they don't they treat constitution as if it didn't exist. For them it's like
correct.
you can never state constitution and expect any results from them. So that's
That's why
terrible, and that's like the very
people powers that are
fundamental mistake that these people are doing, and they have been doing it for since the beginning of Polish Republic, so early 90s. But anyway, that's one thing. Another, yes, you mentioned European flag. We have a Trump equivalent in Poland, Mr. Grzegorz Brown. He is a right-wing politician and director, movie director, and he did for the show. He did some actions that were quite loud around the world. One of them was burning the European flag. So he took down the European flag from one of Polish departments, and he burned it, and he said it's not an official symbol. And people checked it, and yeah, there is no law that it's an official flag, so it's not illegal to burn European flag. Another thing that he did was putting out candles. There's Jewish candles in the Polish parliament. So it's absolutely ridiculous that our acting Speaker of the House, he burned the first candle in this Jewish, Jewish candlestick. And Brown, he ostentiously, he took the fire extinguisher and he put out all these candles, and now he is being accused of hatred or something. I don't remember. But one very important thing he said, he is, uh, this is a display of satanic cult. And Chabad Lubavitch, apparently, this ceremony of burning candles, Jewish candles, was organized by Chabad Lubavitch. And in Poland, it's not even registered. Apparently, it's not even registered as a religious organization. It's some organization, but it's not officially a religious organization. And they
Yeah.
come to Polish parliament and they do their own rituals involving Polish president, Speaker of the House, and so on. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. Uh, if you want to elaborate on this. And another thing, later on, let's move to predictions and what we are
Sure.
going to see. Scary event. Some people say there's gonna be near death experience, civilization near death experience, and how to prepare, how to react, how to deal with it. Let's move to these topics later on. Okay, now you.
Sure. The satanic the burning of the EU flag, brilliant. I love it. And the fact that he did the homework and discovered it's not a registered real symbol, that's fantastic. Next, it's a blue field with 12 gold stars. And they say, oh, well, 12 stars represents the completeness. It's not supposed to represent any particular number. Hang on, I'm just going to make sure I don't lose power here. Just give us a second. There we go. We're back. So apparently, if you look it up, the 12 stars don't represent anything. Well, of course they do. It represents the members that actually control Europe, and I'm not talking about member states. Might be families. Think about it. And so this nonsense that it's just a nice picture that we decided that we'd use. No, everything is symbolism to them. With insofar as the Jewish rituals are concerned, what people have to understand is that Judaism has many forms, and what's actually practiced is the Judaism of the Talmud. Now, Talmudic Judaism is actually derived from ancient Babylonian child worship to Baal and Moloch and the rest of it. That's all it is. Whatever the Hebrews originally had as a religion was taken over and transformed into this Judaism which we have today, which is insane. Um, there's nothing
Let me stop you
nice.
for a second. I'll give you some interesting information. One
Sure.
of our investigative journalists, he said that we have a Polish version of Epstein thing, and he said the
Yep.
second level of this affair is orgies of our politician officials with animals and children. So he
Yep.
stated it. He stated it in Poland, and people, in Poland, people think, oh, it's not here. Maybe in the U.S., Epstein Island and so on, but not Poland. No, it's also Poland. Orgies with children and animals of our officials. Okay, sorry to interrupt you,
Yep.
but that was quite important.
That's it, and that's exactly where it ends up. Now, let me just roll into what happened. Oh, goodness me, with the Judaism and then um, the rituals. let's now jump from this Babylonian Talmudic Judaism to the Masonic movement. We call them the Masonic filth. The Masons is Judaism for the Gentiles. Let me say that again. The Masonic movement globally is Judaism for the Gentiles because it is entirely based on Talmudic Judaic principles, up to and including, people think it goes to level 33, it goes into the hundreds. You can look it up. It is a sex cult that prays to, Baphomet. Whether they know it or not, that's what it is. And so orgies with animals and children, that's part of the deal. And that's why it is global. It is everywhere. This isn't some group of businessmen that just decided to get together and to cut better deals at work. It's got nothing to do with that. This is the control mechanism that goes all the way back to the Babylonian Talmudic Judaism. And Islam is nothing but a cheap copy of that same Babylonian Talmudic Judaism, and the Muslims don't know it. There's no evidence that Muhammad ever existed. Think about that. There is no evidence that Muhammad ever existed. None. None. And yet we have what, 1.2 billion Muslims around the world that want to create the caliphate on earth. The point is, back to the rituals. If you look into it, you realize it's all nonsense. It's all lies. Not just the Jews burning their candles and no, it's all lies. It's all nonsense, and it's been created to distract us. Um, yeah, what we'll talk. There you go. So if you do your homework, if you do your research, you'll find out there's a lot of nonsense out there that people hold to be true and will go to their grave believing it to be true when it never was. Now, this is an attack on the average good Jewish couple, that runs the local kosher deli and goes to the synagogue every Saturday. I'm not talking about them. We're talking about the Khazarian mafia that run the state of Israel, the Khazarian mafia that run the Judaic movement on the planet, that run the Freemasonry movement on the planet as a control mechanism for everything. Everything that we believe in has been established so they can control us. Everything, except one, Jesus Christ. Even Christianity's been taken over and controlled. So this isn't about the church. This is about Christ. And it was interesting, even as a 9-year-old boy at school, learning the catechism as a Catholic, the stories that resonated with me the most, the stories that made sense to a 9-year-old, not to a simple child, but to someone, because these are the stories of a God that would destroy entire cities, men, women, and innocent children. Didn't sound like a good God to me. Sound like a bit of a lunatic. But the stories that made most sense that I try to live my life according to, not always well, were Christ's words and Christ's example. That's the only thing that really made a lot of sense to me. The rest just didn't. And then as the years passed, and I realized, well, guess what? The Bible's been manipulated, it's been edited, it's been changed, it's been interpreted to communicate one message that was never intended by the writers. There's so much out there, folks. There are so many books to read, there is so much study to do. I'll make one recommendation, and people will hate me for it, but they've got to start somewhere. It's a book called The Naked Bible. The Naked Bible by an Italian called Mauro Biglino. Mauro Biglino. And he is an interlinear translator of the Bible from the original sources. Now, what that means is this. An interlinear translator translates the words as written, no interpretation. He studies the etymology, the derivation of the word, its origin, and then translates the Bible. And the short version is this. The Old Testament is not the story of the Jews and a monotheistic God. It's a story of one tribe of Jews under the control of someone called Yahweh, who's not God at all. And he's not a very nice guy. Let's just put it that way. And yet that's now being expanded to be interpreted as a monotheistic belief system for the 12 tribes of Israel, who are God's chosen people. Not even close. And that's why Jesus Christ referred to them as the synagogue of Satan, because he knew exactly what they were. Anyway, I'll just leave that there because I can see there'll be a few Poles would be very angry at me and they'll shake a fist at me for threatening the Bible. But you've got to wake up. We have to read. We have to study this for ourselves and come to our own conclusions. And the evidence is pretty compelling. And so, Jewish candles, whatever, have a look into it, decide for yourself, and make your decision.
Exactly. I want to move on to future events and predictions. Scary event. Recently, in recent months, Trump he made deals to stop something like 8 wars. Most recently between Israel and Palestine, earlier between Pakistan and India, Thailand and Cambodia, I think, Armenia and Azerbaijan and others. So that's one thing. The
Yep.
second thing, there were two or three assassination attempts on Trump. And third thing, we are expecting a scare event, which I understand would involve apparent World War III. So, taking these three things, my prediction would be Trump needs to disappear. So these conflicts around the world would need to start again. That's the that's the that's the logical, like, from what we see, there are these conflicts around the world that apparently have been stopped by Donald Trump. But we are expecting a scare event, World War III scare event. So it would be logical, as a movie script, obviously, to get rid of Trump and start all of these wars again. And predictive programming, we've had two or three assassination attempts on Trump. So to me, logically, it looks like there will be a fake uh, assassination, successful assassination. That's my prediction from what I see. I think it would make sense as a movie script, obviously. What do you think about it? What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think your thinking is quite sound. You're assessing it quite well. Just quickly to run back, so before we talk about that, let me just go back. The 8 wars that DJT has stopped, he's stopped the wars, and it wasn't sort of good negotiation. You know the story about Trump talking to the Taliban leader, don't you? Where he said, um, "I want a withdrawal from Afghanistan, but I want a phased withdrawal. But understand this." And he had the translator. I'm just recounting now what somebody else reported. He's in the room, and he told the interpreter to tell the Taliban leader, "If one hair on one American is hurt, I will kill you." And the interpreter didn't want to say that. He said, "No, you tell him." And he said it. And then Trump handed the Taliban leader a satellite picture of his house, and walked out of the room. How do you think Trump stopped 8 wars? Exactly the same way. See, there's a couple of ways you get to do things. One, you persuade; the other, you force. And when you're dealing with criminals, you owe them no courtesy. When you're dealing with mass murderers, you owe them no courtesy. In fact, a number of the people running these countries have been arrested, charged, tried, found guilty, and executed, and they're being played by actors. So, did 8 wars finish? Yeah, absolutely. Did Trump do it? You bet. Was it done in accordance with what you saw on TV? No, because that's not the real world. These people, as I said, so let me say it one more time. Those that mass murder, those that rape children, those that traffic in children are owed nothing. They have forfeited their right to anything unless they can be of use to the process. But hey, you've got a genocidal national leader. You arrest him, you charge him, you try him, you find him guilty, you execute him, and you put somebody to replace him with a mask on, and that he performs in the show. So those wars stopped. Now, are there still tensions at that level? Absolutely, but they no longer get the support, the financial support to prosecute those wars because wars are expensive. Wars only happen because somebody's funding it, and you only fund a war when you're going to make a profit. There are no wars on this planet that last more than 10 seconds that are actually for an ideology. It's for profit. And once you understand that, you'll understand it. So the next bit. So that's the wars. Um, Assassinations on Trump. Trump has legitimately, there have been legitimate attempts on him many times, most of which have not hit the media. What you've seen have been, how can I say this politely, part of the show. But have there been attempted assassinations on Trump? You bet. Uh, have you seen them? No. Have you seen what the black hats might like to have done? Yes. So there you go. Now, the third part of your prediction was that the show needs Trump to disappear so the scare event can happen. Well, that's a really interesting suggestion uh, because the world without Trump would be in utter chaos. Trump is a unique character at this point in history. Like him or hate him, nobody can do what Donald Trump is doing. Nobody. Zero. That that vacuum that would be created in the absence of Trump cannot be filled by anybody. So with the scare event, will it be World War III? Will it be financial? What's the sequence there? My guess would be the only thing that'll get people's attention is money. As tragic as this sounds, and this is you're talking about how disappointing the polls were. Well, let me tell you, every country on the planet has been disappointing. I am shocked that in we're a country of 27 million. Okay, and yet our country stretches from Moscow to Ireland to the Spanish-French border and across to Turkey. So overlay that over Europe. We cover Europe and a lot of Russia. That's the size of our country, and we've only got 27 million people. And out of 27 million, you know how many people put their hand up to do this? Not many. And I'm deeply disappointed, ashamed of the Australian people, the great mass of them, because they won't do anything. So that's disappointing doesn't begin to describe it, but that's the nicest word that I can put to it. So the only thing that'll move people, and we found this out during COVID, is if you take their money away. See, they will inject their children and kill them and maim them, but they want to get the money so they can keep paying their mortgage, and that's all they care about. That's how sick the human population has become. Love of money. And they don't care about their kids. They don't care about their children. They don't care about their families. They certainly don't care about their country. They just care about having enough money in the bank. And so the scare event that will get their attention is money. World War III, if it's not blowing up outside their window, they won't care. I mean it. You keep paying them, they'll sit there and do what they're told. That's the tragedy. The only question is this what humans are really like uh, in their natural state, or are they like this because they have been so effectively demoralized by the black hats through brainwashing, through poisoning the food, poisoning the water, poisoning the air, poisoning our minds, poisoning our children through movies and predictive programming, injections, vaccines, food? Are we this pathetic in our natural state, or is this just the result of the demoralization process that has been imposed upon us? That's a question for a PhD candidate to look at in the years to come. And so the scare event that'll get their attention is going to be the money. The bank accounts will be zeroed, and all of a sudden people will be in a blind panic. Now, we're constantly telling our A1 people, make sure you've got plenty of fuel, you've got your gas bottles for your barbecue, you've got plenty of food that can be stored for long periods. Get ready because the shops might shut down for a period of time. Now, it won't be too long because they can't afford to have mass panic across the planet. Once the supply chain stops, you can't start it up again. It's not like a car, turn the key and you're good. Once the supply chain breaks down, it's broken for a while. So they can't afford to let the black hats win by default. But that's going to happen. I keep hearing about the World War III event. Um, I don't know. I really don't know because I don't think people will care. Unless the bomb's going out 100 meters from their home, I don't think they're going to care. So maybe it's just the money. Maybe there will be an assassination attempt on Trump. Trump disappears for a few days, and then he comes back, and everyone is relieved because Trump's back. Because there is nobody that can replace that force of nature that is Donald Trump. Certainly not in the minds of the people. Love him or hate him is the only chance we got. I personally love the guy. I backed him from the very, very, very beginning, and I think he's doing a fantastic job. The other scare event, the war, I don't know, the money, yes, without a doubt, the money scare event will occur. There's one aspect to add to that, and that's all the people that have disappeared over the years that might come back. Whether it's Princess Diana, Elvis Presley, a whole bunch of people that are this, Robert Williams, they're names, and you wonder, well, why are these people important? Well, it's not because they're important, but it'll give people a sense of relief that there is something predictable about the future. Now, I'm not much into royalty, but a lot of people are. So when Princess Diana comes back as Queen Diana, a lot of people will be very calm after that. So it's managing the psychological response of the people after the scare event to get them back on an even keel so we can begin to start repairing the entire planet, country by country. So predictions are always a dangerous a dangerous thing, but I think you've got a very interesting potential course of action. I think it has merit. We'll see what happens.
Another thing I wanted to ask you, it appears the behavior of Trump, he gives some reasons for the haters to hate him. And it looks to me as part of the psychological war, but I don't understand it completely why it's like that, unless the free will, the free will. If you want to hate, hate him. But it looks like as part of this psychological warfare, he
Yeah,
definitely
it is.
gives
It's
reason for haters to hate him. Could you explain?
it's to draw them out. Yep, it's to draw them out. A lot of what DJT and the White Hats are doing is to draw out the fakers, the fake supporters, the rhinos, to draw out the haters. When he said, for example, "Oh, Epstein, that's old news." Oh, well, there was a chorus of disapproval. Trump must be in the Epstein logs. Trump went to Epstein Island. Trump this, Trump that. It was literally, it's like sucking pus out of a boil. And so his behavior seems erratic, thoughtless, reckless even. It's anything
Yeah.
but. It is scripted down to the um, last expression, the last word, whatever it is. They're drawing out all the crooks in the system because there's millions of them, and they need to know who's on side and who's not. And that's all this is. It's frustrating to watch if you don't know what's going on, and it is deeply entertaining if you do.
That's what I thought, actually. That's what I thought. Okay, anyway, thank you for this interview. I think, yeah, it's half past almost, so we have finished. Maybe last words to military, to soldiers, because I know one military soldier, I mean retired now, who is a journalist now, a citizen journalist. So I'll send it to him, the interview, and he's expecting it. He's expecting it very much. And last words to the military.
The military in every country, as I said, there's a global. Sorry, I've just lost you. Where are you? There
Hello?
you go.
Oh.
There's military coalition over 100 nations, and so the military is divided effectively into those controlled by the cabal, and they're generally the high levels, and those that are not. And the high levels, for the longest time, didn't even know that their lower levels were actually operating, which I think is amusing. But a lot of the military will be taken out, have been taken out, um, because they should be. Treason at the worst level. The junior ones, the lower ranks, are just doing their job, and they're doing a very good job of cleaning out the mess. And they're also being And this is how can I say this? In conducting operations, you sometimes have to turn a member of the opposition. So what you'll do is you'll watch you might be watching senior officers in a country, and you'll realize that this particular individual, for some reason, he's straight shooter. He's actually saying and doing the right things, and he's very uncomfortable with what he's doing. And so they'll feel him out, and it's just like any spy operation. They'll invest, and then they'll turn him. But then they'll send him back in to keep doing what he's doing, or her. So the black hats think that this individual is still on their side, but he's actually reporting back. So
Is
it's
the report?
spycraft, it's espionage, it's all of that. So there are a number of them that are playing bad guys, embarrassing themselves publicly, um, ruining their reputations publicly, but in the course of following an action that will benefit in the long term. And they'll be exonerated in the end, and people say, "Wow, you did a great job. I thought you were a complete idiot." But these people are also playing their work. So you can't say the military is this, the military is that. It's broken up into different segments. Some are just doing their job properly. Some are working for the good guys against the bad guys, and the bad guys don't know. And so it's always hard to tell. Once again, the future, which is very, very key. And I'm not sure what Poland's situation is, but I can tell you this. When I was in the army, we always found it frustrating when the government tried to make us a social engineering organization. It would frustrate us. It said, stop sending us these problems because we have to build an army to fight wars. We have to build an air force to fight wars. We have to build a navy to fight wars. We're not a social engineering organization. And in every other time in history, that would make sense except today, because today the people are so demoralized. It is so embarrassing. We have men without testicles. It's terrible. And women that want to have them. They're so confused. What we must do, and this is not dissimilar to, it was the first attack on, it was in Poland by the Mongol hordes, where they destroyed numerically superior um, European knights, and somewhere between 10 to 25,000 knights were massacred by the Mongols' hordes, their superior tactics and strategy, and their mobility. It took a generation or two for Poland and the rest of Europe to recover from that impact. Now, fortunately for Europe, after those series of wars, there was one of the armies in the north that hit Poland, one of the armies in the south that I think hit Turkey. I'm not quite sure. But as they were hitting the flanks so they could come through the center of Europe, and Europe lay at their feet. But the second Khan died, and the rules required all the brothers and contenders to go back to Mongolia to elect a new leader. Thank goodness for that, because that break um, allowed Europe to reconstitute its military culture and its military capability. Absent that death, Europe would have been destroyed, completely destroyed.
Mhm.
The Mongols destroyed Babylon when it produced enough food for 20 million people, and this is 5000 BC. Now, if you're not into it, that doesn't sound like a big deal. But we're talking about in Babylon, they had air-conditioned buildings. They had control of the water supply down to the gallon, which tree received how much water. They managed to. This was the Fertile Crescent. This is between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. The Mongols destroyed it. 5,000 years of civilization gone, courtesy of the Mongols, and it turned the Fertile Crescent into a desert. This was the impact. So they hit them south down in Babylon. They hit them up. That was 5,000 years ago, but 5,000 years ago. That was 1,000 years ago, and they destroyed a 5,000-year-old civilization. But they hit the Europe in the north and Europe in the south. Now we're going to come through the center. Absent that death, no European country could have rebuilt its military culture and its military traditions and its military capability. That's where we are now. Every country has been degraded by the black hats through, again, the poisoning of the water, the air, the food, their minds. We have soft men and hard women. What we need to do in Australia, this is a message for the military, and I can promise you this is what we're going to be doing in Oz. We're not in favor of conscription. Australians don't like conscription. I don't like conscription. But we're going to make joining the military so attractive that mum and dad, every mother and father will be pushing their son and daughter to join the military because we'll be giving them real training in a real skill, whether it's a tradesman as a butcher, a carpenter, an electrician, it makes no difference, all the way up to the high levels, more musicians, more everything. We're going to rebuild our military and we're going to rebuild the population as we rebuild our military. Now, two or three generations of that, and Australia will be a very different country, a massively different country. They spend their 7 years in, they get a trade, they work for 3 years, they get an acre of land and a big payout, and away you go. Go join the great Australian workforce, but now you're trained. And so you'll have these waves, these cadres of 24, 25-year-old Australians coming out of the military after 7 years, depending on when they joined, maybe a bit later, between 25 and 30, let's say. And they are now fit, smart, educated, skilled, disciplined, and free. So it's not a militaristic country we're building. We're just building uh, self-reliant, competent, capable individuals who will now contribute to building the nation. And so, as I said at the beginning, militaries hate it when they are treated like social engineering organizations. But this point in history, this is exactly what's got to be done. Army, Navy, Air Force, Cyber, Space Command, all of them. We are building the generation of Australians or the generations of Australians that will rebuild this country. And we'll see the benefits maybe in 2 or 3 generations. Certainly in 100 years, they won't, Australia will no longer resemble this collection of lazy, ignorant, stupid, uninformed, frightened people. We'll have a bunch of moral, sovereign, self-reliant, Christian, Western, democratic, constitutional Republicans who are economically powerful, militarily intelligent, militarily intimidating, politically free, culturally vibrant, and socially cohesive. So you can see we've now ended where we started. This is the country we need to build. We're going to build it from every man, woman, and child up from this point on. And watch out, United States, because we're going to be the greatest country that ever lived.
Great. Okay, I think we can finish now because the time is up. Thank you very much for this interview. I think it went very well. I think it went very well. There are elements for English speaking non-Poles as well, so I think it's a good material for everyone. And thank you very much. It was very nice to meet you.
Absolute pleasure, Tomas. Thank you to your listeners. Thank you for the invitation. And let me try my Polish out one last time. Dziękuję I dobranoc.
Dobranoc. Understandable. Thank you.